gender, and identity within Module 1. In this presentation, we will focus closely on the meaning of identity. The United States has historically focused on the use of race as the most significant cultural identifier, a narrow definition of an individual that does not allow for individual identity development, and the influences around diversity or cultural responsiveness has had a tendency to focus on checklists that attempt to describe how a particular group of people will act or what they will value. This method of defining individuals in relation to a single group does not account for within-group differences, the fluid nature of identity development, or the multiple contributing factors that make up an individual's cultural identity. It also leads to negative stereotyping, in that all members of a racial or ethnic group are presumed to hold a static set of beliefs and values. In her book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?, Beverly Daniel Tatum suggests that, in large part, the world around you defines your identity. Who do your parents say you are? Your teachers, peers, and neighbors? What do you learn from the media about yourself? Are you represented in the cultural images that surround you? Most of us can identify ourselves within these identity groups. See how your identity grows in complexity as you define yourself within each circle listed on this slide. For the remainder of the presentation, we will examine two other elements of identity. Those are power and privilege. Social power is the ability of groups to achieve desired ends. Social power is not having individual power over other individuals. According to John and Tom Atlee, social power is the basic common element in politics, economics, and all other social relationships. It is possessed by all individuals and social groups and arises out of their connections to each other. On this slide are a series of types of social power, including economic, governmental, physical, political, media, knowledge, personal, situational, and cultural and institutional. Social power is afforded to individuals based on their membership in groups which have had more or less power in the larger society. Social power is not a direct result of an individual's personality, skill, talent, or achievements. Rather, it is at all times embedded in a larger context and reflects the social, economic, and historical status of the groups to which a person belongs. More often than not, social power is invisible, unacknowledged, and unexamined. While formal roles and responsibilities are frequently clear, inequities based on gender, class, ethnicity, age, appearance, and education are rarely addressed openly. Take a look at the picture on this slide. In what ways do you see invisible or visible social power operating? One possibility is the difference in power between the men and the women sitting at the table. While the one woman is clearly in the role of presenting and talking, the men at the table seem to not be listening as attentively as the other woman. Here's an example in which gender is differentiating people in terms of their power. Privilege exists when one group has something of value that is denied to others simply because of the groups they belong to, rather than because of anything they have done or failed to do. Here's an interesting quote. Regardless of which group we're talking about, privilege generally allows people to assume a certain level of acceptance, inclusion, and respect in the world, to operate in a relatively wide comfort zone. Privilege increases the odds of having things your own way, of being able to set the agenda in social situations, and determine the rules and standards and how they are applied. Privilege grants the cultural authority to make judgments about others and to have those judgments stick. It allows people to define reality and to have prevailing definitions of reality fit their experience. Privilege means being able to decide who gets taken seriously, who receives attention, who is accountable to whom, and for what. Here's another photo I'd like you to look at. In what ways do you see privilege operating in this photo? In this photo, there's a group of white girls on a soccer team, but there are no girls of color. The reason for this could be attributed to many factors, some of which might be related to privilege, such as whether it cost money to join the soccer team and to what degree non-white families have that affluence. It could be attributed to where these girls live. If they live in a particular neighborhood that is organizing the soccer team, and this neighborhood does not have many girls of color, then those girls wouldn't be represented on the team. Whenever one group of people accumulates more power than another group, the more powerful group creates an environment that places its members at the cultural center and other groups at the margins. People in the more powerful group, or the in-group, are accepted as the norm, so if you are in that group, it can be very hard for you to see the benefits you receive. Thank you. This is the second